Welcome to another edition of The Session. I am Timothy Teach Jones.
This is Dwight James Jr.
And Dwight hit me with a topic today that he insists we talk on, and I think it's a hot topic because, so many people are married and want to know how to have a successful marriage. So, Dwight, you hit me with the love and marriage, and the first thing you said to me was we need to talk about date nights. Are we not dating? Do we need to date more? Talk to me.
No, listen, dating is important. Dating, we do dating leading up to the marriage. But for some reason, after we get married, we just forget to date. Like your spouse, your wife still wants to dress up. She still wants to look nice. She still wants to take you out or have you take her out, however, on a date, So now that we're married, you can't stop doing the things that you did while you were courting her, and I'm talking from a male's perspective. So like with my wife and I, we have to plan our date nights.
Right.
So date nights are scheduled in, and so date nights, they don't have to be expensive. You can go to the park, you can have a picnic, go to the movies, but you got to do something. And so that's why, date nights are important. How do you feel about it?
Well, I wanted to open the call with the fact that you and I have 30 years of marriage experience. For those that are listening, Dwight has been married to Crystal for 10 years. I was married for 20 years before my divorce. So we still have a lot of wisdom and insight to share.
Yeah.
So, to speak to your question about the value of date night, and I know, we'll get to marriage after kids in a minute. But for me, having two daughters throughout my marriage who got there about 3 years into the marriage, dating was critical. And I love what you said, because it's almost like the finance conversation. We have to make it practical. And there were times that, we got a sitter on, a Friday, and we just went to a local restaurant and a movie. There's other times where it was a weekend getaway. And then there were times that we couldn't find a sitter. But we put on a movie for the kids upstairs, gave them some popcorn, and told them to stay up there and, we'll come check on them, and just had dinner in the kitchen ourselves. And I'm responding to your question. It's critical that married couples continue to date each other, have fun with each other, keep the flame alive, or your eyes will wander if you start to think that, like, this is predictable, it's to be expected. That person can become your roommate other than just your spouse.
No, you're absolutely right. We focus so much on the wedding that we forget to focus on the marriage. The wedding is an event. It is one day, but your marriage is the rest of your life. And so that dating aspect, like, what did you do, husbands? What did you do when you were dating your future wife? You guys went out, you were creative, you was dropping rose petals. I mean, you did anything and everything to keep her interested.
Yeah.
And then we get married, and then it just falls off. So it's similar like what you said, Tim. Like, there are times we go to the movies, we've done weekend cruises, we've weekend getaways, like you said, and different things, go to the museum. There's so many options, but your spouse wants to know, hey, can you date your girlfriend still? Like, she's still your girlfriend. Yes, you have the marriage aspect to it, but look at it like, hey, you still trying to win her.
Hello. Now, Dee, I have a personal question for you, and this is not something that we discussed as a part of the podcast, but I think it's relevant because I'm thinking about the listeners. We both know that there is a distinct difference between intimacy and intercourse. So let me talk about intimacy for a minute while you're dating, and this is a question for you. Is it easy for you to continue to hold hands and open the door and to be as affectionate as you were? Or do you have to, like, purposely turn that channel? Hey, tonight I'm going out. Let me grab my wife's hand. Or not even just going out, but just, you've been married for 10 years. So Is it a challenge for you? Because there are people who are listening where this is like, yeah, I do need to improve in that area. Is it just easy for you? Do you automatically, you guys kiss while you're having dinner at the restaurant? You hold hands everywhere you go?
That's a great question. We hold hands a lot. It is not unnatural for me. So what we did while we were dating, I still do now that we're married. I have a daughter, and we're going to talk about marriage after kids shortly. But as a daughter who's 100% a daddy's girl, you have to be completely intentional about not neglecting your spouse. And so the way I do that is we still hug, we still kiss, we still hold hands in public.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
as you should.
Yeah, as you should. Now, everybody, I understand there are a lot of men and women who are not very affectionate. So if you're not affectionate, then you have to create and find ways to still let your spouse know, like, hey, I'm still interested in you.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, I don't have an issue with it, to answer your question. Now, quick question for you. Because you have 20 years in the game, as a married person, now you're out and about, you have your kids and your wife, you have 2 girls. How do you balance the two?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, when I was married, the balancing act was the kids need to know that mom comes first. I think that for those that are listening now that have children, they need to know. And it's not just you saying it. They'll know by the way you treat them. They'll know by the way that whatever you have planned with your spouse trumps whatever you have, whatever your kids are requesting. So, my kids used to say things like, "Oh, that's so sweet." They when they see hand holding or they saw kissing, that was something that was second nature for them because that's all they grew up around. But I think that there has to be a precedent. And you said something, earlier that probably is, it resonated with me. You said, if you are not affectionate, I know, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother episode, probably for dating, because we need to find compatibility.
Yes.
But if you are someone who is not affectionate, you need to work on that.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I don't think is tolerable or permissible if you want to have a great marriage is like people making excuses. And Dwight saying, look, Crystal, I just don't hold hands, all right? And it's like, if I'm Crystal, I'm thinking like, you don't want nobody to see you holding my hand? Like, who are you? What are you trying to hide? I think that there's things that have to do with intimacy that have to be cultivated because sometimes we didn't grow up like that. Maybe our mother and father didn't hug us like that or kiss us like that. But there's no excuse, and the divorce rate is going up because there's so many excuses.
You're absolutely right. I feel you just touched on something very important. Affection kind of starts as a child. Like you might have grown up and came up in an area where you never saw your parents hug and kiss. You never saw your parents be real affectionate with each other or with you.
Exactly.
And so now here you are, grown adult, you're married, and you don't know how to express that affection towards your spouse. So speaking to people who may have that issue, Tim, you just said we have to cultivate it. What are ways that we can cultivate that affection?
See, that's a great question. Now, those of you that are listening, I can speak to this issue. If you say, I'm not very affectionate, my mom didn't kiss me, my dad didn't hug me, or my father wasn't even in the picture, or I grew up in a group home or a foster home, and it wasn't very, hands-on. I get that. Here's the thing, though. We can't use that as a crutch to justify why we are, our spouse is, deficient in affection. What we need to do, to answer your question, Dwight, is go get some books. That's one thing that we can do, is get some books on intimacy. You might even need to get some books on sex, some karma, what's it called? Karma Sultry. I don't even know how to pronounce it, but you might need to go to the bookstore and Google karma, sultry, something like that. And we got to learn. Like right now, Dwight, you're going to school to get your doctorate because there's some things that you don't know, but you're not saying, well, I just ain't going to know them. You're going to school to learn them.
Yeah. No, that's good. There's another book called The Joy of Sex, since we're talking about sex now. The Joy of Sex. And that book, along with the one you just mentioned, Tim, can help with just affection and, intimacy and things like that.
Do you know the author? Or we can find it.
The author, I don't know. I can't think of it off the top of my head. They can Google it. Yeah, Google it.
And here's one more, since we're on the one of my favorite marital subjects, which is intercourse, because I ain't had nothing in 2.5 years. So let's talk about it. No, no, but there's another one. My friend, and you guys can Google this book. It's called, and this is a faith-based book, but we ain't talking about it, so we need to. It's called How to Properly Eat a Peach. And I think we done stopped. We have stopped. Some marriages are failing because one, they're not, there's not necessary affection in the marriage. And then number two, the first year or two during the honeymoon stage, y'all were going at it and having fun as rightfully so as married. And then 5 years into it, it's this decline. And now, Billy Bob is sitting there watching TV and he got a beer belly. And his wife is on the internet all day talking to her friends on Facebook. And we have to rekindle the flame if you guys want to have love in marriage.
Absolutely. Now, The Joy of Sex is written by Alex Comfort. But anyway, now, you're right. For some reason, we fall off as far as like sex. There's people who have sex maybe once a month. You're lucky.
Lord have mercy.
Now, some are lucky if you get it twice a year. You might get it on your birthday. Remember the song Jeremiah, Birthday Sex?
Yeah.
You might get it on your birthday. And if you're lucky and Santa is good to you, you might get it on Christmas.
And you gonna get a divorce. That's what you gonna do.
But other than that, now, because I've been asked this, my wife and I, we mentor other married couples. And so I've been asked, is there, like, how much for, sex should you have? Is there a certain number? And personally, I don't believe so.
No, that's contingent on the couple.
As often as you should. But that is contingent on the couple. Like, some are okay with doing it, 3 days a week. Some are okay with doing it 4 days a month. It depends. But that goes to communication. You have to communicate with your spouse. Like, what are your needs? We're talking about books today, there's a book called His Needs and Her Needs. Mm-hmm. You have to communicate what your needs are. Husbands and wives, communicate what your needs are so that you can come to a mutual agreement.
Absolutely. Now, Dwight, as we kind of smoothly, because this is a great segue into the married couples who have sex. And when you say, it's heartbreaking and funny at the same time, when you say people might be, okay with having sex twice a year, that's just a shame. However, I do have to speak to that group.
Go ahead.
What if people say, I hear you guys and you're laughing and I'm laughing, but I have kids and I might even have multiple kids and I got to go to soccer and basketball and gymnastics and I got to go to concerts and then I'm working overtime. And when I get home, I'm just tired. And when I look over there at Lucy, she don't look like she did when she was 25. And for whatever reason, we're being flippant. For whatever reason, the sex or even the intimacy or even the date nights has all declined because of the fact that they have children with multiple responsibilities as parents. Like, how can you speak to them, D, in a way that's practical, where you factor in that, they have to be parents and they have to go to these activities, but how can they also maintain a prosperous, happy marriage?
That's an excellent question. You have to make your marriage a priority. Mm. You were husband and wife before you were mommy and daddy.
Hello.
And you have to remember that. There's a lot of couples who we deal with who when the kids leave, the kids are now grown. They are 18 and off to college, and now you are what's called an empty nester. It is just y'all two in the house, and now you don't know what to do with each other. So you break up. You get that divorce, like we talked about, because you don't even know who each other are anymore. You have to remember your husband and wife before your mommy and daddy. Now, granted, I mean, I have children, so you have to still make your spouse a priority. Now, your sex life might not be as frequent based on, I got to go to t-ball practice. This one has dance over here. This one has, the spelling bee, whatever it is, but you still have to make that priority. That's what communication is so important in a marriage. Otherwise, you're going to get to the point where you don't even know who each other are. You've been married 20, 30 years, and once the kids came, you forgot that you had a wife. You forgot that you had a husband, because now all of your time and all of your energy has been focused on your children.
Exactly. Now, D, me and you are grown. Can we have grown folk conversation?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember in Boomerang where John Witherspoon, he went in the bathroom and came out and his blazer was turned inside out and he was popping. His wife came out chewing gum. Right. And he told Martin. Martin said, "Man, what were you doing?" And he said, "Bang, bang, 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 bang."
Yeah.
Listen, for all of you married couples, this just came to me, and I know we got to move on. But when it comes to sex specifically, and I love how Dwight mentioned T-ball and spelling bees, but sex is not. It doesn't have to be this grand Olympic event that you got to have an opening ceremony for. You got to light the torches. You got tiki torches in the backyard. Sometimes you need to go in the bathroom before you go to work and blow it out. Listen to me. hey, listen to me. We having fun, but dude, this can save your marriage.
This is real talk.
Sometimes, and I know, that 5-minute quickie should not be the norm, but that's a shame if you say that it's 6 months and you ain't had sex. So find a way. But Dwight, you said something to me, even in preparation for this call. You had no idea that what I'm about to say means more to me. I miss it more being unmarried than I do sex. What I'm about to tell you. Like I said, I'm single. I'm trying to do it God's way. I've been celibate. Pray for me, y'all. However, what I miss more than intercourse is pillow talk. And for those that say, "Oh, that sounds sweet." Well, I'm not trying to sound sweet. I'm saying married couples, you guys, and Dwight will speak to it in a minute because he does this on a regular basis. I miss it. I miss having someone to bounce out ideas off. I miss having dialogue with the opposite sex. I miss discussing, potential decisions that have to do with life and career and parenting. Those are some of the best, most invigorating. I'll say this lastly, D, because this is something I'm passionate about. I heard a comedian say this the other day. He was being interviewed, and I almost jumped out the car when he said this. He said, when you go to an audition, the casting director is not always the one making the decision on who gets the job. Sometimes their wife is. And everybody was like, "What do you mean?" He said, they go home and they lay in the bed and say, "I had this dude come in. His name was Dwight. I interviewed him. He was cool. He came from California. He says he's going to start a church. I don't know how long he's going to be here." And then the wife says, "Well, tell me about him." And the point was they collaborate even off stage. They're collaborating. And he comes back and says, "Hey, I've decided to give you the job." You don't know that his wife chose you, bro. So tell the viewers or the listeners about your pillow talk and how valuable it is to the marriage.
Wow. Well, we talked earlier in this session, Tim, about communication, and pillow talk is a deeper, more intimate form of communication. So Crystal and I, we've developed and cultivated pillow talk over the years. And so we discuss, good Lord, everything, everything from from strategizing about ministry to plans for our future, you know, daily struggles or daily challenges we might have at work or interacting with people. You have to have that person, like you mentioned a second ago, who you bounce ideas off of. Like, that is so essential. And it's amazing how many people don't have that, don't have pillow talk. I'm not talking about singles. I'm talking about the ones who are married.
Right.
And just don't have that type of deep, intimate, personal communication with their spouse. Pillow talk is essential to a successful marriage. And you're absolutely right. Some of the projects and things that I'm working on now, I come home and I talk to Crystal about it. And, you know, I trust her 100%.
Yes.
So if she has a different vibe about someone or, you know, a direction where we're going, it's there during that pillow talk that we discuss that and we make shifts. So I'll come back the next day and talk to the organization, talk to the individual, and, you know, address it. And they'll never know that it was actually Crystal that made that decision. And let me just throw this quick tip in there since we're on this. Husbands, listen to your wives. They have wisdom. We don't know everything. There is so much that Crystal has saved me from just when I listened to her. People who I thought I should interact with, do business with, and she has like that inkling where she's like, no, she has that discernment. She's like, no, don't do it with that one. And I'm so glad I listened, because I probably wouldn't be here in Florida now if I, you know, didn't listen to what she had to say. So pillow talk is so crucial.
Dwight, let me say something to what you just said about listening to your wife. I was talking to, well, first let me say this. God never would have said that Eve was a helpmeet if we didn't need help, bro.
Absolutely.
Period. Now, having said that, I was talking to a female friend about 3 weeks ago and laughing, talking, great conversation. But she said something that I just stole from her, and I'm about to plagiarize it and take it with me for the rest of my life. She said, and she's single, she said, when I get married, I want to be my husband's chief advisor. He's the head. But I want to be kind of like his Condoleezza Rice. When I tell you that even though I already knew that and I already practiced that the first marriage, and I'm going to do that for the rest of my life, the way she said it, I wish husbands could get that, is that, dude, she's not your cook. She's not your home decorator. She is not your sex toy. You know, she can be all those things. She can be your stripper. She can be your chef. She can be all that. And you can have fun in marriage. You don't have to go to the strip club. You can just go home. However, if you ever view her as your chief advisor, you about to be singing, all I do is win, 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 no matter what, up in this BIE.
Yeah. There's a reason. There's a there's a quote that, you know, that say, behind every good man is a great woman. There's truth to that. You know, and people connect the success of President Obama to Michelle. Yeah. There's truth to that, you know, and so husbands, listen to your wife. She's not there, like you said, she's not there for you to trample on, for someone you can bark orders to. She's not a dog. She's not a child. She is your wife. And just like you have opinions and ideas, she has opinions and ideas too, that carry a lot of weight. Yeah. Now here's this. You have to remember this. She was smart enough to select you as a husband. On now. Trust her that she's smart enough to be your chief advisor. She is your CAO, your chief advisor officer. Yeah. Trust her and her decisions. Now, let's bring a balance to this, though, because I don't want people to think that I just have to listen to whatever she says, and now she's the leader. Yeah. You guys have to communicate and balance this out. But we're not meant to be alone. We are relational beings. And so we have to bounce ideas off of each other. Listen to your spouse. And then wives, listen to your husbands. There's wisdom in your husband. Your husband had enough sense to select you as his wife. So trust that he has the ideas and concepts that are needed to carry this family and carry this relationship forward. So it goes both ways.
I love it. Now, D,
it definitely goes both ways.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now we won't, and I love scripts and all that, but I love going with the flow. So we will not have enough time to hit on a couple of things. One of the things you wanted to talk about was, like, for people like me who have been divorced, we wanted to talk about remarriage and, when we should do it again. And obviously when you meet the right person. But I'm kind of fast forwarding with your, agreement. We got to talk about forgiveness, man. In our last few minutes, throughout the course of a marriage, whether, it's the newlywed phase, and if you plan on staying married and, doing the whole happily ever after, you guys are two imperfect people. You are going to make mistakes. And I'm not talking about breaking each other's hearts. I'm talking about just being human and making mistakes and, mismanaging money or forgetting to pick up the kids from school or, raising your voice. However, listen, forgiveness is going to be critical to happiness because people hold grudges. Like, I'm going to get married again, but let me just be facetious. I ain't never getting married again if there's going to be 3 days without talking, and now we ain't speaking, and when we go to bed, you lay on the edge of the bed, your black behind about to fall off the bed, and mine too. But talk about forgiveness for a minute, Dwight, and how critical it is to having a fulfilling marriage.
You have to forgive each other. Now, nothing, and I say nothing in light of, I know a lot of you are divorced. A lot of you have had multiple marriages, so there is pain there. Make light of your pain. However, I want you to take this note. Forgiveness is essential to any healthy relationship. I don't care if that relationship is at work, friends, you have to forgive. Now, a quick game, or, we call it a game that Crystal and I do, and it's easy to do when you're happy. It's a little bit harder to do when you're upset with each other, and that is this. We do this thing, Tim, called I love you today because, and then fill in the blank. So, for example, I love you today because of the way you take care of our daughter. I love you today because of the way you did your hair. It could be simple. You can make it profound. Now, that's easy to do when you all are happy with each other. But when she's yelling or raising her voice, and then you say, tell me why you love me today. Please. Now it takes some work. Yeah. Because you can't just say, love you. I barely like your black.
Yeah.
Now it's going to take some work. And so that's a quick tip I want people to do today. Spouses, when you finish listening to this podcast, I want you to tell your husband why you love them. Don't just say, I love you. Tell them why. What about them do you love? Now, connect that to forgiveness, because if you keep that reason at the forefront of your mind, it's going to be easy to forgive the person when they've hurt you. Because I guarantee you, your love for that person is going to outweigh whatever situation, the type of pain that was caused. But you got to do it. Tell them, I love you today, and this is why.
And I love what you said, D. As we close, guys, as you listen to this, your love will be tested just from being imperfect. But to his point, it makes me think about a quote where, Joyce Meyer said this, and I've been saying this for 100 years, and I'll be saying it for the rest of my life. If we talk about forgiveness, we have to talk about the effects of unforgiveness, because it can, deteriorate your relationship. And unforgiveness is like you drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies. Do yourself a favor and forgive. We appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of TheSession. Until next time, on behalf of Dwight James Jr., I'm Timothy Peach Jones, and we are out.
Subscribe to our YouTube page by clicking the link below. There you'll find links to our Facebook and Instagram pages. Make sure you turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any future episodes. So until next time, thanks for tuning in to The Session.